Good evening and welcome to Talking Dogs on a Monday. And what's been a pretty surreal and, in truth, a very sad and depressing weekend for greyhound sport, not because of the action on the track, but because we lost a great friend in Pat Curtin. More on that later on, but as Pat would always say, come on, let's get on with it. And we are going to talk about the Con and Annie Kirby Memorial, which did indeed see the field halved for the final time on Saturday night. As 12 became 6, we now have a wonderful final to look forward to on Friday evening. It's strange to look back on it with everything going on, but I'm, as always, joined by the Exile Dub, Tommy Lyons, and of course, the Lily White Assassin, Dylan Brennan, is joining us also. Lots to reflect on. Apart from the Kirby, we have the likes of the Puppy Oaks, the Select Stakes, and the Supersprint down at Curraheen Park. So on the racing front, so much to celebrate from the last few days. Gentlemen, you're very welcome. Excuse me if the form isn't quite what it should be on this Monday morning. By the time people are watching this, is Monday evening. The news is well and truly out there. Let's get into the greyhound racing. We'll talk about other things a little bit later on. We saw two wonderful semi-finals, Tommy, of the Kirby Memorial the other evening. It's fair to say they were both over after a stride.
Yeah, they certainly were. Kind of confuses me a little bit in some ways. Like Gaytime Hugo, which I thought last week might find a way to get into the final, get the pace he showed was incredible last week. But like, did I think he was going to pop out? Not a hope. Not a chance that he was going to lead. When he led and did a 120, what was it, 127, 128, it was all over. Right Hope Beach ran an absolute miller. An absolutely superb race to try and run down a dog as strong as the K-Time Hugo. And I think as the months passed by, we'll realise just how good a performance that was by the runner-up. But this was just over. Like, he's a phenomenally fast dog. And you know what, sometimes with greyhounds, you find the dogs that normally you put them in the box and saying this is a pure stayer, out and out stayer, you know, just needs to get a little bit of look around the opening bends and stays. And when they pop out in front, sometimes they do a bit too much too early and they don't have the same finishing kick. But when Right Hope Beach threatened at one stage, I thought, geez, you know what, he's getting close. Gaytime Hugo just found loads.
Yeah, it was massively impressive display by Gaytime Hugo. Of course, Clonbrien Treaty was also hugely impressive. Dylan, you were meant to go to Limerick on Saturday night, but those pesky racing managers put a runner on for you at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night. I know that because we met in the T-bar prior to racing. We were looking ahead to the likes of the Kirby and the action at Shelbourne Park. And I don't think either of us would have expected both heats to be won as they were. Obviously, Clonbrien Treaty's dog, who we touched on last week, he's been improving. And the term "if" was used plenty as regards his starting. Well, there was no if about it on Saturday night. He absolutely pinged the lids, and it was a stunning display, especially to the third turn. The fact that he went nearly a length slower than Gaytime Hugo is immaterial. He was a considerably faster to the third bend, and that in itself was so impressive.
Yeah, Ian, it's been, I think it's been threatening as well. His trapping has been his big downfall from day one. He ran in the unrace stake in Shelbourne, and he was just walking out, but the pace he was showing in defeat. And I kind of thought even going into the Kirby, he was one of those that if he could brush up on the trap, and I thought he'd go a long way. But I didn't see him improving as much as he did the other night, 125, which is, it's just staggering. Like, he absolutely came out through the bars, and you know, I think that run, the run has always been in him. But the thing with him, looking ahead to the final, would be if he could back that up, and looking at where he went from one into the opening bend, it just, like Tommy said earlier on, it's just the final itself now is just, it's wide open, the draw and everything, and for a final so big, I think he's the one real early pacer in it. But I think the rest of them, maybe apart from the Bogger Dog in 6, seem to be more staying types. But it was a massive run, but like I said, he's going to probably have to come out something similar, and I'm not sure he will. But look, he's. I just think on the draw, like, I don't think I've ever seen an inside seed come out 1, and he's literally where you'd be in 6 on the run up, you know, and he did similar even out with 4 the previous night. So, but look, he's an exceptionally fast dog, and Graham Holland, to be fair to him, knows how to get these dogs to finals. He'd 4 in the Easter Cup. Just the week previous, and here he is now with 3 in the Kirby, which is fair outgoing.
Yeah, I asked the question of Dawn, the main woman behind the scenes here on Talking Dogs on a Monday, and I said, "How was Limerick on Saturday night?" And her instant reaction was insane. There was an absolutely colossal crowd on site. She said they didn't just sort of come in late like they normally would. She said just from early on there was just crowds piling through the styles that continued right until the off, and as a result it was just huge night at Limerick. And obviously that didn't upset the two Graham Holland trained winners, Tommy. Let's talk about the two semi-finals. The opening semi-final, obviously Ben's Teddy and Teresa's Mendoza were strongly fancied on the inside of the track. Just didn't happen for Pat Buckley's two charges. Ben's Teddy came away moderately. Teresa's Mendoza was slowly away into the corner as Blast Off Sally was sitting in fourth. Scaglietti came across them, and all of a sudden there's just a bit of a schmozzle on the Ben's Teddy and Blast Off Sally come off worst. Teresa's Mendoza turns fourth. It was just over from the early yards. Gaytime Hugo took a flyer from trap 4, leading into the opening corner. Ryhope Beach came around in second after Scaglietti cut for the inside and sort of held himself up on the opening corner by doing so, allowed Ryhope Beach around the outside to go second. He ran a huge race to defeat, and Scaglietti running very well in third for Pat Guilfoyle. 28.09, the clock is there, 4:16, 16 seconds. Massive run by the winner, but also a massive run by second, as you've already alluded to, Tommy. And I think Scaglietti can take a lot of credit out of it. He overcame a tricky draw.
Yeah, he did, and he's a dog. He's a dog for the future. I'm not sure. He's obviously, he doesn't to me look like he's ready to pop out and win a final or anything like that yet. But he's a seriously fast dog. I was talking to a fellow who would be at Limerick track every night. I was chatting to him yesterday in Tramore, and he was saying he felt that one of them charged the boxes inside, one of the two inside runners. Now I don't know that for certain, but he seems to feel that that's probably what happened. Said he was close enough to the boxes. He felt that one of them, he wasn't even sure himself which one it was, but he felt like one of them on the inside. And it might tally a bit. Although I found Limerick difficult this competition, in the sense that dogs are going from 127 to 140 to 127 back to 140 back to 127, that sort of way. You know what I mean? There's dogs where you kind of you watch them for a couple of rounds, you've said, yeah, this is what this is capable of. The next thing, it goes either two lengths faster, 2 lengths slower in that section, and then you're not really sure whether it's going to revert to type and go back to missing the break again the following week. It's just are flying out. It's what makes the final very interesting. I mean, if you would offer me that 10-1 Gaytime Hugo, if he turned turned third, I'd say, geez, I'd have a good bet in that now, because he's such a powerful runner.
Yeah.
But to think that he was going to pop out in front, Ryhope Beach kind of I wouldn't say he stalled on the bend, but he's just a dog that's still just thinking about what happened in Tralee. And I would suspect that Ryhope Beach will be a Derby contender, a genuine, serious Derby contender down the line. At the moment, we talked about the program before, and the program works really well at the moment for these type of dogs, juvenile classic kind of into Connan, Kirby. You can step up from there up to the Derby. It works well, but there's also then a little bit of a rush if there's an issue along the way, if you know what I mean. So I just think that Ryhope Beach hasn't had the chance to kind of take a break from it all and kind of just get things right for himself. I think when that happens, and Dylan said that the most of them are strong stayers, and Ryhope Beach, in fairness to him, has shown some attitude. He's shown some determination to come from off the pace. But what we saw in Tralee was a dog that absolutely rattled out of traps, did phenomenal sections in the early, phenomenal early pace in the early rounds in Tralee. And I think when he gets that back, and I think it will come back, we'll have a dog that could potentially win a Derby, because sometimes with dogs you have to wait 7, 8, 10 runs to kind of figure out where they stand. But actually with him, I think we saw in the first 2 rounds below in Tralee thinking, wow, this is a proper machine. Like, this is a proper greyhound. I think that was blatantly obvious. So I even though I don't fancy him for the final, and I think the draw is reasonably tricky just based on the way he's running at the moment. I think it was a massive run, and it gives depth to the competition. It gives depth to the final. I think that he's in there and probably not leading fancy. I looked at the betting. I think they're going 5-2 each 2. Gaytime Hugo and Clonbrien treating, and 3-1 Ryhope Beach, and it's kind of big prices the remainder. At the moment, I would have him where he is in the betting, third choice, maybe even slightly bigger than 3-1.
Ryhope. Purely because of as you say, just there is a slight confidence issue, but it's definitely growing. I tend to agree with you. I think come Derby time, he's going to be a major contender. The ability is there; it's bubbling under the surface, and yet he's still showing it. Does that make sense? I think there's a couple of insane runs in him. Whether it'll happen next Friday night, it has to be seen. But there's no question this dog is, he's certainly one for the future. Dylan, go ahead, Tommy.
Sorry, you put it beautifully there. I actually didn't think of the word, but like it's a little confidence issue. That's all it is.
Yeah,
that's all it is. And when that's gone, we've got a Derby Greyhound.
Yeah, no question about it. Alison Banderak, of course, herself and her husband Mike were responsible for Dramana Bucko a couple of years ago, and that didn't work out for them. But hopefully, Rye Hope Beach will be right there, banging contention for Derby honours later in the year. He's already there for the Conn Anthony Kirby Memorial, and he's certainly not one that can be dismissed in any way, shape, or form. Dylan, looking at the race, Gate Time Hugo, it was over early. This is a dog who, his best run prior to the Kirby came over 550 yards at Cork. That's not a surprise. This is a greyhound that really does look made for probably 575, 600 yards. It was evident the other night in the way he galloped home. But the fact that he did ping out and do that 127, 416 suggests he can do it again. And if he does, given the fact that he's in 4 in the final, we will talk about the draw a little bit later on, the final itself. But given the fact that he's in trap 4 again in the final, it's going to be a big help to him. Just broken out of that box. He's now back in the same box. And we know where Clonbrine Treaty's drawn. We know what he's going to do early. He might just have a buffer in 2 and 3. And if that's the case, Gate Time Hugo could be banging contention on the corner. And if that's the case, well, given his strength, he's a huge player.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, you've got Scaglietti inside him, who, if anything, might edge in on the run-up. So, and like you touched on earlier, there's not a lot of early. In Tommy made a good point about Rye Hope Beach. I backed him from the start, and I loved him down in Tralee. I was a little bit surprised his style of running in the Kirby. But like you say, the body he touched on it, he's done so well. I think the opening 2 rounds he done exceptionally well just to even qualify. He's brave. There's a massive look. He did a massive run last week, but he's so fast from the second bend on. He's ridiculously quick. But I think Gate Time Hugo, I think he has a good makeup. Like if he comes away at all, he's probably like 127 last week. It's hard to see him maybe doing that again. But looking at the final, it might even take something along the low 130s to pop out in front. I think he's got a really good makeup. He's strong. He is going to be better over further, but I think he probably looks to be one of the best drawn dogs in the race anyway, going into the final. But it was a massive run last week, and like you said, it was over as soon as boxes open. Yeah. You weren't going to pick him up. And if any dog was, if you looked at it and said, if there was any dog to pick him up, it would have been Rye Hope Beach. But look, he did massive running in behind, in fairness, so he was probably 4 or 5 down, turning off the second men, and I think he's bet 2.5. But I think he's definitely a big player in the final to get on Hugo.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case. The O'Connells really do punch above their weight, Tommy. Gate Time Hugo is a son of Gate Time Hawk, Gate Time Derval. They breed their own down there. This isn't their first dog to make a major final. The sire Gate Time Hawk, if I remember rightly, he was a Derby finalist. He was very talented himself. It's some achievement to have a dog in the final, but for a dog to be by your own sire out of your own dam, like it's extra special.
That's huge. Yeah, he was in the final, the Ballymacmat one. Yeah, it of course it is. I mean, it has to be special, and it's not like they've hundreds of greyhounds. They have plenty. Don't get me wrong. And they've been in the game for a long time, and they've had good dogs along the way. But this has got to be extra special. I mean, if you go and breed with yourself, you kind of don't expect it, do you? You kind of that's what you live and hope for, but you don't actually really expect it. I'm happy when I have a dog that can compete at A2 level, and if I can get I didn't even breed it. I mean, if I can get something that can compete in the second most valuable competition, be in the final as a leading fancy in the second most valuable competition in the country, I'll be pretty happy. All right.
Yeah, we'll move on to the second semi-final, where Clonbrine Treaty, who was bred by the Murphys, won from Trap to Lion. Obviously, James and Kay Murphy are in the game a long time. This Clonbrine Tree happens to be owned by James and Mirren, their daughter, and the son of Pestana and Clonbrine Millie. Well, he has been bubbling under the surface. While he was well beaten in an unraced stake at Shelbourne Park in each of the rounds, he showed all manner of early speed after completely walking from boxes, flew down the back straight, and there was more than an asterisk put on him, a big star circled soon written on the card. That soon turned into hopefully soon, because he just kept missing the kick, and then bang, the last 2 weeks just been a different greyhound. 132 in the quarterfinals, 125 did we say in the semi-finals. Yeah. It was over after half a stride. We touched on it last week, Tommy. I thought he was the one dog that was coming forward. He was still 20-1 in places prior to Saturday night, which is pretty mind-boggling considering I know the draw and I know what his tendency is to do swing off early, but given his ability, that did seem very, very big indeed. He's now, as you say, a 5-2 favourite. 4'11", 15'88", 125. It's all there in black and white. Just a stunning run. I'll start with you, Dylan. Clonbrine Treaty just looks a rapidly developing star. I dare say it could well be his last ever start as an inside seed. Son of Pestana. More so now than ever. Just seems to be just edging straight off. He was out in trap 6 in the early yards. Is one of the few races where you'll see 2 dogs getting clear onto the corner and the trap 6 dog having to dive inwards to avoid the trap 1 dog.
Yeah, it's a funny look. Like I said, he did it the previous week out of 4, and it's not until he's actually, like last week, he's in 1 that you realise how drastic he does it. Like it's, I couldn't believe it. It's one of those where you say it's a good job he did a 125. Because had he come away with them, he was in trouble, and the dogs on his outside too. But looking at his earlier rounds as well, he, like you say, he's always done it. But because he hasn't been so well away, there's been something to keep him in. But I think he did. I think he ran him one of the previous nights. I think in one of the first or second rounds I was there, and I kind of half fancied him, and he actually went up. He took a step out, and there was something there to hold him in, and he kind of went up the rail then, but then at the bend he just went straight out again. And like you say, it's obviously a worry in the final that he's back in there, but he's exceptionally fast, and the one thing I do like about him in terms of talking about his trapping, the previous week out of 4, like you say, he did a 132, and you're going into last week and you're kind of saying to yourself, he has to back that up, do something similar so you can kind of say to yourself, maybe he is getting the hang of this trapping thing, and then he goes and improves on it again. So he's an exceptionally fast dog. He's the one in it for me that has that early pace, but it's going to be very important and to the final itself of what happens at boxes. But I'm listening to you there saying he was 20s before last week, which is, it's a tough one to take. I remember looking at him at 66s before the Kirby, and it was humming and hawing, and I thought, no, he just doesn't trap well enough. And even 20s before last week, there he is now in the final. But anyway, whatever happens.
Yeah. Tommy, Clonbrine Treaty, I think it's one of the rare occasions where the general consensus, be it from owners, trainers, racing managers, opposition, I think they were all praying that he'd draw a bit further out in the final, drop 3 or 4. And don't get me wrong, if he pings out, it probably could ensure his victory, given the fact that where he's drawn, in the sense that he probably has the fate in his own hands. If he pops out, nothing's going to certainly pass him on the outside. They're going to have to come from behind him. And that's not going to be an easy task with a greyhound capable of doing 28-10, 28-15 on the bunny. But he is in trap 1 in the final, and there's no point in skirting around it and leaving the final draw for a few minutes, because it could be a major issue. There's no question about it.
It is a major issue, because when that time that Dylan was talking about, when he was at the inside before, he bumped with a dog twice on the way up, but got held in twice. But he did try to get out twice. Now, yes, he corrected himself slightly.
Even in the quarterfinals, he took 2 bumps from trap 4, edging out. So
yeah. And when he got to the bend that time, he went off the bend and whatever else. So, like, it is a concern. Like, if we go back to our school days, Ian, if you can remember that far back, and we could apply Pythagoras theorem, we'd realise that a 125 is if you went straight, was about a 120. Phenomenal early pace. Like, how a trap one dog could be the wildest runner into the first bend, I don't know, and no trouble in the race really at that point. Where his, you know, the final is very tricky, right? Dylan says earlier on, it's really wide open and it is, right? And then we look like right Aegis if he pops out, does a 125 again and goes clear all the way and wins it, and we're kind of gone, we knew he had more early pace than anything in the race. You kind of look like a fool, but like I was trying to make a case to see would Hovek's Tommy be a concern, because he has a 128 on his card, but his last two are 138s, and if he does 138 again and Clonbrien Tommy or Treaty does 130, he'll clear him. You know, he'll avoid Hovek's Tommy. It kind of depends on which dog he first meets in terms of when he's turning right up, or if he meets any at all. Scaglietti is a remarkable dog that can be doing two 130s and be fifth and third at the two sectionals.
As it happens in the final, he's got the two smallest dogs in the final in traps 2 and 3, which I don't know if it'll make much of a difference if you're running straight into them, but it could help.
I tell you, if he runs into Gay Time Hugo, he'll straighten himself up all right. Big 80-pound dog.
Yeah.
To be honest about it, Doya had read it first of all when the draw came out, right? You say to yourself, well, if Gay Time Hugo breaks again, he'd probably win, because you'd imagine on that run the other night that he'd lead Hovek's Tommy most nights of the week. He'd lead the current guys of Rye Hope Beach. He would lead on let's call it on Limerick form. Bogger Lucky. Clonbrien Treaty led him quite comfortably the other night, albeit it had to be 120 or 125. If Gay Time Hugo leads the outside 5, I think he could probably pick up Clonbrien Treaty. But like I think that man I was talking about who does the sectionals and all that, he was in Limerick there the other night. He was saying that he thought Rye Hope Beach was better drawn in 5 than 6, but I'm not so sure, because if Bogger Lucky breaks, as he almost always does, Rye Hope Beach is then looking for a place at the first bend, and he hesitated for 1 second, 1 split second the other night, I felt, Rye Hope Beach, and then drove on around the bend and ran a stunning race.
Before you go on there, it is worth pointing out that coming into a race like this, it's a huge advantage to him that he got an absolutely clear passage on the outside, no trouble, whatsoever. That will aid his confidence, Rye Hope Beach. Yeah. But as you say, if Bogger Lucky comes away racing and Clonbrien Treaty comes away racing, and he sees two dogs in a pincer movement in front of him, a dog with just that little bit of a confidence issue, it's not ideal. Like, he's not going driving through that gap. We know that.
Well, we know how good a trainer Michael Donovan is, and he'll have him cherry ripe, and that, as you say, that bit of confidence, that's an important point. That bit of confidence the dog might have got from the other night. I just would prefer, if I was to fancy him for the final, I think he would have to be in 6 for me, even though I know Bogger Lucky might out-trap him at the moment. I do think that if the Rye Hope Beach of Tralee came back, if the early rounds of Tralee came back, he'd probably lead the whole lot, to be honest about it. He'd lead the race, I would say, or he'd be the one I'd have down as the most likely leader in the race anyway.
Yeah, I think potentially he might start better from trap 5. But I think if you're looking for a cleaner passage, I think 6 would have been his draw. Let's talk about the two other qualifiers here. Hovek's Tommy, who was third for much of the way and looked destined to finish third. Not really a big player in the contest, but he stayed on well to grab second on the line. He does a lot right, Tommy. He has that 128, 28, 27 on his card. He's going to need to at least repeat that.
Yeah, like he definitely doesn't do much wrong, does he? He's that type of dog that he looks already he looks quite solid. You know, he is, I suppose he's 2 years of age. He looks quite solid in the way he races it. Yes, he's fluctuated a little bit from 134, 128, 136, 136. But like his 285 in Clonmels, 286 in Clonmels, they tally up quite nicely with what he's doing here. It's pretty much I would have them down as a very similar line. They're not quite like special early pace, but they're pretty good. Like, the beauty of him is when he popped out, he was able to do his 28, 27, beating Clonbrien Treaty. But then when he didn't break as well, he was able to run a big race and defeat both times and qualify quite comfortably. Like, he's a very much deserving finalist in the sense that he never really skirted going out of the competition either. He's one of the few maybe that you never thought at any stage he wasn't going to be there in the next round. Probably needs to. I think. Even though obviously with only 8 runs under his belt, he can improve. I think he probably needs to step up on what we've seen so far if he's to win it, because he has a desperately tricky draw. And unless Clonbrien Treaty out-traps him and goes right across the track and leaves him with a lovely little run up the inside, other than that, I don't see how he get a run to win the race.
Yeah, Dylan, what's your take on it? Hovek's Tommy, he's a really likable dog. He's doing everything right, but this is a tough test.
Yeah, look, he's good all round pace. Tommy said it there; he's quite solid. But I agree in terms of the final. I struggle to see how he gets a run. With one moving out, and like I said, if anything, Scaglietti will probably edge in. Even if he did, yeah, I don't know. I struggle to make a case for him now in the final. Look,
it's a similar type draw to Bocco's Crystal, let's say in the Easter Cup last week, where you knew the dog on her inside was moving off and you knew the dog on her outside was moving in, and that's exactly what happened. Now the dog that was moving out in that race was Trinity Junior. He doesn't do anything like Clonbrien Treaty.
No.
So this is a far more extreme version of it. He's going to need to do things right to get involved. And then Bogger Lucky, Dylan, Liam Peacock has done things right. He's not an old man by any stretch of imagination. In fact, most of us would call him a young man because he's younger than us. He's doing things right. He provided a lot of runners for, the early meetings at Kilkenny for a number of years, but the last 2 or 3 years, things have really started to happen for him. Of course, he bred and sold last year's Beaten Derby favourite Callaway Pro-Am. He bred and sold Bogger Hunter, who went on to win this year's Gold Cup. He could have sold Bogger Lucky 6 times over. He also had a good winner at Kilkenny on Friday night in the feature in this early rounds of the Blackstone Kennels Stake, Bogger Dusty. He's doing things right. This son of Run Happy has good early speed. He's progressive. I know a lot of men have tried to purchase this dog. While he did a 133, a 127, and a 132, I think this is potentially the one dog in the race that could do a 122, 123 from the trap. Is he the potential Stone Park Leo in the field is what I'm asking you.
Yeah, I actually think he might be. Going through it last night, I thought the draw really brought him into it. I thought it was a big run last week in defeat. Even though he finished third, I kind of had him down about 2.5 down at the third bend, which would have kind of left him doing around 16.05. Which most nights is going to be good enough to lead. But like you say, when you have a dog doing 125 out on your inside as quick as Clonbrien Treaty, I think he is. I keep going back to not being much early in it. I think if this fella hit the lead, all depend on what happens on his inside. I could see him leading around. And although he doesn't have the flashy times as some of them do, he is going the right way. I know he's 28.47, 28.45 the last 2 nights, but like I say, if he could just come away that bit better, which I think he does have it in him.
He's a 420 in Kilkenny, which
I was just going to say, going back to his Kilkenny farm, the splits in Kilkenny, if he could find one of them in the final, I think it could be enough to see him lead around. And he might just, like you say, it's hard to kind of see with the way the draw is, maybe not trouble in behind, but I don't think he's out of it at all. Yeah. When I looked at the prices, I actually thought he might have been a bit bigger than what he actually was, but Dame was obviously not too slow either. He copped on to, he has him in at 6s, I think it was. But no, I think
there's no allowance for giving Damo any credit in this. Okay, there's none of that, right? I tend to agree with you. I think the 6 is plenty generous enough still, to be honest. I think as a potential pace setter on the outside, I find it easier to make a case for him than probably most of the other runners.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Tommy, Bogger Lucky in the outside, mentioned Liam Peacock, he certainly is the future in the game if the last 2 years are any indication, and breeding the litters as well as training them, and this fellow is yet to finish out of the first 3. He's now in the final of a Kirby. He's doing things right.
Yeah, and the beauty, and you mentioned Callaway Pro-Am and Bogger Hunter. The beauty of them was that they didn't just go and improve out of sight for going to a new trainer. He had been progressing them nicely himself before that. Do you know what I mean? The potential was there, and they were coming along that line. It might have got to the same level if he'd been with them. So, I mean, I don't know his circumstances, but it's not a bad thing either that had happened, because it's highlighted. Do you know what I mean? The dog's going to own the Callaway Pro-Am dog. It kind of highlighted the breed, highlighted Liam Peacock, got him into the news a bit. You know what I mean, in terms of the scheme of greyhound racing. So, very positive stuff, and having a finalist in the Kirby is huge.
Yeah, and like everyone, he is a seller, but I think he's a little bit more of a reluctant seller these days. He doesn't quite have to sell them as early as he used to at one point, so yeah, just don't be surprised if he has a few more in big finals for himself.
Right, but it's a confidence thing as well with a trainer. To believe that you have the ability to train them and compete with some. Look who he's up against: 3 Graham Hollands, Pat Foyle, and Michael O'Donovan. I mean, you're in top company there. You're only short of adding in, Pat Buckley and Paul Hennessy and a few others, and and all of a sudden you're going, wow, this is the very top table I'm at. So, in fairness to him, it's a credit to him, and it will give him the confidence to hold on to a few more.
Yeah. I just want to mention a couple of things about the final. Funnily, we never really sort of looked into it. Just the dogs that went out: Ben's Teddy, Teresa's Mendoza, Blastoff, Salah, all played their part in making this a wonderful Kirby memorial. I'm sure we'll see plenty more of them, especially Ben's Teddy and Teresa's Mendoza. The Blastoff Salah dog was just progressing at a rate but knots. He's yet to win a race. I'd hate to be turning up into a winner of none or a maiden competition or something, and Blastoff Salah sitting beside you. And then Sing Along, Emer, Ballymac, Shawnee, and YI Man, all very, very fast indeed. Sing Along, Emer, and Ballymac Shawnee particularly strong. YI Man a bit more sort of all round pace, but we'll see plenty more of them in the future.
He was actually a bit unlucky, I thought, Ian, too, to go out. The YI Man.
He was just sort of, as you say, sort of fourth into the opening corner. Just found the wrong dogs in front of him, and just couldn't get around Ovex Tommy, and that was his race done and dusted. I just want to talk about the final itself briefly. You mentioned it there, Tommy. 3 Graham Holland trained runners: Pat Foyle, Michael O'Donovan, and Liam Peacock. Just look at the 6 sires: Pastana, Lawhill, Blake, Magical Bale, Gaytime Hawk, Droopy Sydney, Run Happy. 6 greyhounds that all began their life, were bred in Ireland, all ran in Ireland. It's wonderful, wonderful to see. Obviously, Droopy Sydney had very, very likely raced, but you look at the remainder: Pastana, Lawhill, Blake, Magical Bale, Gaytime Hawk, and Run Happy. Each and every one of them a Derby finalist. Lawhill Blake, the Derby winner. But others that played such a huge part in their various derbies. It's great to see them all coming through as sires. Funnily enough, I saw you look at Graham Holland's 3 runners, Clonbrine Treaty for James and Kay and Mirren Murphy, some of his most loyal owners. The same could be said for Graham Ash and Sean Gresham. They've always had a few dogs with Graham through the years, some really talented types. And his 3rd one is, of course, for the O'Connells, who they've had such a wonderful relationship as well. Pat Foyle, Cheryl and Peter Sutcliffe, they're main owners. They've had such success over the last 2 or 3 years. Alison and Mike Banderak with Right Hope Beach for Michael O'Donovan. They've had a Derby finalist with Michael. They had the brilliant Romana Bucco. It didn't happen for him, but it's great to see them with another one in the big competition. Then, of course, Liam is on and training his own, and that's great to see also. It's a wonderful final. Obviously, it's a very, very tricky final. I'd love to make up my mind about it after 10 yards, but I suppose the same could be said for every final of this nature, Tommy. I think most people would agree.
Oh yeah, big time. I'll tell you what, the one thing I'd be interested in saying, and because I've talked about it a bit over the last year or two on this, that we're not far away from the time when smashing through 18, the 28 seconds will be pretty commonplace. I would love to tally up at the end of the year how many of the dogs that ran in the Kirby break 28 seconds, whatever track, doesn't matter, over the course of the year. I suspect the numbers will be big. We've got phenomenally fast dogs. They're doing I'm not saying anything amazing. That like a lot of them done sub 28:10 in Limerick already. And yes, you need the conditions and you need the right track and you need the trap draw and all that. But we've seen so much absolute raw pace from the greyhounds here. I think there'll be 6 or 7 of them will break 28 seconds before the end of the year.
Yeah, I was surprised simply because I don't think any of the 6 finalists will have an opportunity to break 28 seconds in the rest of the year, because I think most of them will be up to the 550-yard trip. I think they'll have, other big targets in their sights over 550 yards, maybe the exception being Bonger Lucky, perhaps. All the others they're all capable of doing a 28-second run on the right night in the right conditions, no question about it.
Well, I mean in the competition of what we've seen, even going back a bit, because the phenomenal pace has gone out of this competition as well. I mean, to get here, you need a combination of lots of things as well as a bit of luck, but you need immense talent, because it's been phenomenally deep, and that's the one thing that I take away from it. I know we say it every year that it's a great competition, great this, great that, but like this is, I'm going back to very early rounds where this dog's just absolutely, get knocked out, and you kind of go, wow, how did that get knocked out of a Kirby?
Let's talk about the final, Tommy, briefly. What wins, and what's your view?
I'm just uncomfortable with Clonbrine Treaty in Trap 1. I'm just uncomfortable with it. I think, I'm not sure. When I looked at it the very first time, I looked at it yesterday, the first time I actually sat down and looked at the six finalists, I kind of thought Hovek's Tommy could be a thorn in his side. Not as convinced the more I look at it that he will be. And Scaglietti is an amazing greyhound that hasn't yet managed to lead over 5-5, despite being probably the most consistent at traps, doing the 130s and the dead 130s and not being able to lead a heat, which amazes me. And he won a 5-7-5, I believe it was, wasn't it, in Cork that he beat did he beat Magical Mary,
Yeah, Magical Mary was in the final, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe that's exactly what he is. He has very good early pace without being sensational early pace, and when he steps up and trip, he can lead in that sort of lead 5-7-5 dogs maybe. So maybe it is setting up for Clonbrine Treaty, but I think if I had to pick one of them right now, I think Gaytime Hugo just slightly favours it. Which is kind of funny because he was a 10-1 chance to win the other night. Yeah. And then he did he did a 127. But like if he does 136, he's probably a 10-1 chance to win the final.
Yeah. Yeah. Himself, Clonbrine Treaty and Rye Hope Beach have already posted. Rye Hope Clonbrine Treaty hasn't broken it yet, but if you take the 28-15, as you say, take Pythagoras's theory out of it, like he's certainly capable of doing a 28-second run. You consider the ground he's thrown away. Gaytime Hugo is a 28-09 and Rye Hope Beach is 28-05. They're the three dogs in terms of the clocks are the fastest three in the contest. So yeah, obviously have to respect Gaytime Hugo. It just sort of begs the question how he was 10-1 the other night. But listen, that's hindsight's 2020 and all that.
I have a difficulty in seeing Bogger Lucky win it, even though both of you made a good case, and I can understand the case, and it's not that difficult to make it in some ways. But like if he doesn't lead, he's in trouble, right? You're not going to win. I think that's reasonable. But there are such strong greyhounds in this in this final as well that if he leads, something is going to get a run at him. You would imagine, like the likes of if Gaytime Hugo gets a run, if Rye Hope Beach gets a run at him. I think Rye Hope Beach personally think he is the worst of the draw, even worse than Hovek's Tommy, because I don't think Hovek's Tommy breaks well enough to get into trouble. So I'm going to change my mind before the end of the week and before I actually have to write it in the paper. But I'll probably end up with Clonbrine Treaty because I'm not sure what Gaytime Hugo does. Does he do 127? Does he do 140? Who knows? So I think we've now realised that Clonbrine Treaty, if you look at the sections, they built up slowly. It wasn't a massive surprise when he did the other night. Yes, it's a concern that he turns right, and I just hope it doesn't ruin the race. That's all. Once it's clear. Yeah, once it's somewhat clear run, all greyhound racing should have a little bit of bumping. It's part and parcel of what is greyhound racing. But once there's no serious trouble, I'd be quite happy. But I'll probably end up changing my mind and going with Clonbrine Treaty by the end of it. But I can't see myself having a bet at that either. I find it really difficult. Really difficult.
I tend to echo all those thoughts. Dylan, what's your view on the race?
Look, it's to sum it up. I backed Rye Hope Beach from the start, and I was probably more confident before the first round than what I am now when he's in the final, which seems a bit daft to say, but like that, had I not been on it from the start, I'd probably struggle to have a bet on it, to be honest. I think, obviously, I'm hoping Rye Hope Beach, but I just purely based on the draw, I'd give Bogger Lucky a good shout. I think he could lead around out wide. It obviously all depends on like the main dog in it, isn't it? Is Clonbrine Treaty, if he traps or what's he going to do? We know what he's going to do, but like if he's going to come out in front or what. So I just have a worry about them inside dogs with him being in one. So yeah, if I was forced into one, I'd probably say Bogger Lucky.
Okay. I think it's tough. Yeah, I think it's very, very tough indeed. I think it is the epitome of one of those finals where a smash break could overcome all problems, and that could be Clonbrine Treaty, that could be a Scaglietti, perhaps, could be a Gaytime Hugo, and it could certainly be a Rye Hope Beach or a Bogger Lucky. Like, don't be surprised if Rye Hope Beach did ping and all of a sudden does a 125, first time at the competition, goes around 3 in front and wins in 27.90, breaking the track record. I don't think that would be a surprise to any man, woman, or child. I think he's that capable of doing so. But my first reaction was that Gaytime Hugo was far enough away from Clonbrine Treaty that if he broke well like he did the other night, he would have a potential buffer on his inside with Hovex, Tommy, and Scaglietti perhaps staying in the way of Clonbrine Treaty, and that could allow Gaetan Hugo get the run that he needs around the corner to turn close. At this moment in time, I'm favouring Gaetan Hugo. I will be writing the piece for the Racing Post later in the week, and at this moment in time, it's Gaetan Hugo, but that could well change, Tommy, as you said earlier on. It's all well and good knowing that now, but when you actually have to put words on paper and you end up talking yourself into another greyhound, and that could easily be Rye Hope Beach or Bogger Lucky. I genuinely haven't a clue what's going to win this final. All I know is that it's a race not to be missed.
When you're looking at it from a punting perspective, is this how a final should be, or should there be a clear one that you can have an opinion on?
I do like a final where there's a clear one that you can have an opinion on, but I do like them to have different to Swords Rex in the Easter Cup final, where I'd like them to be sort of 5-4, 6-4, but out in 4, where they need to do things right, or else things can go bad for them wrongly or quickly. And all of a sudden, you have a dog on the inside at 6-1 or a dog on the outside at 8-1. And all of a sudden, if it takes one little moment, and that could be a huge price. I love that 6 or 8-1 chance. In this race, I think the one that potentially, if Rye Hope Beach hadn't produced those runs in Tralee and we priced purely in Limerick form, I think he'd be a 6-1 chance. But this was the dog that was nearly 6-1 at the start of the competition. And I think there are liabilities involved and whatnot. And I think that's why he's 3-1. Don't get me wrong. If he was 6-1, I'd definitely be having 100 to 16 or 200 to 32 or something like that. He'd be the dog I'd be backing at that sort of price. At 3-1, he's too skinny for me. But again, I think it's a wide open final. Again,
this is the epitome of a final where you base your selection on price.
Correct. Absolutely correct. At the prices, what stands out for you?
I feel like I'm like you. I think Rye Hope Beach is very short of 3-1, and will not be exactly what you said. Will not be surprised if he pops out and makes off. But I just don't think he's ready to do that just yet. I don't see the value in Bogger Lucky. I'm going against both of you. I don't see the value in them at 6-1. Don't see it. I think at the moment, if Clonbrine Treaty was in 3, right, swap him and Scaglietti, right, just swap the 2 traps. I think he's probably 6-4. Because you say, if you line himself and Gaetan, you go up together, up beside each other, we say Clonbrine Treaty leads every night.
Yeah.
So I think the 5-2 Clonbrine Treaty is probably. I'm now convincing myself as we talk.
He's probably the value of bet in the sense where because he's less than 5-2 to trap, and if he traps, he's doing 28-10 on the money. Try and pass that.
Think about
Tommy,
this.
I think we're both going to end up tipping Clonbrine Treaty.
Nap.
Dylan, where's the value? Where's the value, Dylan? We know what you want to win. What's the value at the current price?
I still think. Right.
No, I think that says it all.
Yeah, no, look, it's just going to be swings and roundabouts here. You keep going on about it because I did think Bogger Lucky before I looked last night. I thought he'd be bigger than 6s, but like I say, I think you both said you probably would struggle to have a bet in it. I don't know. I honestly don't know. There's just so many questions. Like I said, it's just a draw. Just like. Even going through it last night and looking at it again, and as you're talking, I'm thinking maybe one of them will say something that kind of clicks in my head that, I might fancy that, or think that's. I still just don't know. And I don't think I will. I put it to you this way, I'm glad you're the ones having to write a piece on it, not me, because I don't know. I don't know.
It is a final where 3 arrows wouldn't be enough, Tommy. You'd need another one.
I just noticed, though, that another firm has priced it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the way they priced it: 3-1 each of 3. Clonbrine, Gaytime, and Rye Hope. 4-1 Bogger Lucky. 6 Scaglietti and 10's Hovex Tommy. Now that 3-1 Clonbrine Treaty is too big.
Yeah, that is too big. See, we don't know what liabilities are in place as well. In these situations, I'm assuming the Rye Hope Beach is a liability situation because he was backed in from 8-1, I think, to 6-1 or 7-1 at one point. So there clearly is liabilities in him. I'm not sure about the others. But yeah, I don't think it's quite a 3-1 the field race.
I'm now convinced myself that it's Clonbrine 3, and because the 3-1 is valued everything. So I'm gonna have to watch this. If I doubt myself during the week, I'll watch this back and convince myself.
Well, the beauty is, Tommy, we get to talk about this all over again tomorrow evening at Limerick itself, and we hope there'll be plenty of people joining us.
Where I tip Scaglietti.
Well, funny, before the draw was made, or before I knew the draw, I didn't actually learn the draw until Sunday morning. I was sort of going home thinking, I hope Clonbrine's in the middle, and that sort of gives every dog a chance. And if he's in the middle, God, do you know what? If Scaglietti's drawn on his inside, I'll end up tipping Scaglietti. And here we are. He's in trap 3 and Clonbrine 3. He's in 1, and I'm struggling to make a case for Scaglietti. But again, I think Scaglietti is a fourth one I've mentioned, a potential tip in the race. So I think we better move on before I completely sit on the fence and end up tipping Hovek's Tommy and oh God, I have mentioned Royal Beach and Bogger Lucky. Yeah, I've tipped up 5 of them at some point at this contest. This talk this morning. A great Kirby. It continues to grow in importance and significance, gentlemen. It's something we shouldn't forget, that it's now well and truly established as the second competition on the calendar, only to the Derby. Tommy, we've been beating that drum for quite a while now. The significance is there for all to see. It's just undeniable at this stage.
It's class, absolutely class, and it fills a big gap, not a big gap. It fills a big space in. And I'm saying space not in as in void, but it fills quite a big area in the calendar now, because it goes on for a nice few weeks, and it's also, you've got to build up to it, and you get to see what's coming out of it over the next few weeks and everything. It's fabulous. And as I said to you, I have said it, and I would have been critical of the racing program in the past, but I really think it now sits beautifully.
Yeah, I think everyone's sort of comfortable where it is that now, to be honest, Dylan. You know what dogs are, what dogs are going to do once they appear at, let's say, the likes of Clonmel or Kilkenny, or not Kilkenny, Clonmel or Tralee. Kilkenny, speaking of, will be starting next month. That that has its own place in the calendar, but the calendar's in a good place with the Kirby, one of the shining beacons.
Yeah, it is. Look, it's like you said, you started off them with the juvenile. It's just all, especially for these younger dogs. I find nothing more exciting than you're looking at the first round of the likes of a Kirby or a juvenile or the on race now in Ennis or in Kilkenny that's coming up, and you just know they're superstars. Going to be coming out of it. And look, the Kirby all was, I think someone put up a picture of last year's Kirby final, and the dogs that come out of it are just ridiculous, but it's the same every year. Look, when you have that sort of prize money as well, it is. And Limerick, I know we said a lot about the ledger and that, but there's just something about Limerick, these big nights down in Limerick as well. And Dom was saying earlier that Saturday night was just crazy, and it's a little different too as well, the Kirby, with the GAA clubs and that getting involved as well. And look, it's all coming together nicely for, like you say, the second half of the year when everyone's aiming for the Derby. And it's hard not to get excited about competitions like this.
Yeah, it sure is. Gentlemen, that's enough Kirby talk. We look forward to Friday's final. Let's hope for
before we leave
Go ahead.
Before we leave Limerick, we should talk about the Masked Crusader. I come back to in 2961. Edge.
Yeah,
what a fabulous performance!
Yeah, bang away and gone. Not a bad comeback run. I don't know where he ends up next. Pat had sort of mentioned the Shelbourne Open 600 was a possibility. We'll see if he's in the entry for that. Otherwise, you'd imagine somewhere like Tralee for the Race of Champions is probably on the agenda. He's not going to England, as we know at this stage. Yeah, Tommy, he showed what he's about the other night. He's just bounded clear. He just made it look very, very easy in his comeback run. And who's to say, Dylan, he might be even better this year?
Yeah, which is a fair, which would be frightening, because he is. We touch on him a lot. Like he's one of those. He's probably the only greyhound that you look at and he could do a 27.90, and you'd say to yourself, "Geez, he seemed to have a little bit left in the tank there." He's exceptionally fast, and it's great to see him back. And he'll be very interesting if he does rack up in the 600. That big long run to the bend, I can't see anything leading him anyway. But yeah, it's great to have him back.
Yeah, obviously a couple of big finals at Limerick on Friday night, apart from the Clonanny Kirby final. We have the Limerick Goba, an 8-3 stake, a decent little 8-3 stake there. A glorious best at the standard in the semi-finals. And the Sean O'Connor, of course, worth €5,000 to the winner. And great to see Thomas Lahey having a good winner in the semi-finals, 28.50 from Kells Dynamo, the brother of Mert Lahey. I was lucky enough to play golf with Thomas a couple of years ago, and great character, and not a bad man with a dog. He's got Kells Dynamo racing from Trap 3 in the decider. As I say, for Brendan Matthews, looks a big danger. You can make claims for Una Machina, Ballymac Samuel, Old Bill and Kilcohan Zoo. It's a really cracking little final, that the Sean O'Connor. Let's move on from Limerick. Of course, that all happens on Friday night. It will be live on Racing Post Greyhound Television. Robert Catterson will be on hand, microphone in hand, as we've always say, interviewing anyone that moves. Also, on the weekend, we saw the Select Stakes, the opening round of Select Stakes, Dylan. 3 good performances. The opening heat won by the other Kobe, getting over a Trap 5 draw, beating Crypto Punk, who was the odds-on favourite, somewhat surprisingly, over the other Kobe. But the other Kobe drove the opening corner, went on to win at 28.52. Fastest time of the round, winning by a length. Burgess Rapid was quick away, always led, as you'd expect from her if she's going to win in the second heat. She won well in 28.66. In the third heat, went to Weekend Dream. He didn't set the pace early, but he took it up into the third bend, picked it up from Dogs Anonymous, and went on to win in 28.56. And of course, 3 or 4 big names will arrive into that competition for the second round. We have the likes of Clona Duke coming in. What else is coming in? Callaway Pro-Am. A couple more. I don't have the card in front of me. I should have done, not prepared. Tommy, it's a good setup for a contest. You know, the dogs that have proven themselves in the previous year get that sort of buy in the opening round, and it adds sort of real mystery and intrigue to the second round, as Galloping Sydney is in as well. Cracking little competition, won wonderfully well last year by Explosive Boy. Explosive Boy winner, Skywalker Barry win it last year.
Explosive Boy, Skywalker Barry finished second from 6th.
That's right. Yeah.
Only in 6th in the final.
That's right. I was down there. You think I remember it? But a great little competition, a great little sort of system of running it.
It's unique. It's unique. Yeah. Some good performances too. The other Kobe. I mean, if you stop that the video at the line the first time, you said there's no way he'd get across the 2 dogs on the inside. And even then, CryptoPunk was maybe moving a little bit middle. And they met, and yet the other Kobe stood his ground really, really well to get around in front. So you can probably take 2 or 3 lengths off that time as well. Burgess Rapid, as you say, flew out. Kilcohan Sydney ran well in defeat. Weekend Dream, there's the dog that Packify's done really, really well with. Obviously had a few issues along the way after winning the Juvenile Classic last year, but he's been brought back to compete at the very top level and do so successfully. So he's a testament to, again, further testament to Patrick Foyle's ability.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy win this competition, Dylan. Like, there's some real talent on show.
Yeah, and like you said, the 3 that are coming in then as well, Clona Duke, Galloping Sydney, and what did you say was the third one? Oh, Callaway Pro-Am. Yeah, look, I was delighted to see the other Kobe win the other night. I feel he's always a little bit unfortunate with these first round draws. He always seems to be stuck in 4 or 5 or something. And
yeah, he's got 5 the next round too.
I've seen that. The thing I liked about him the other night was I know he edged in the whole way up, but maybe he's just getting a little bit cleverer, because before he used to just, as soon as boxes were open, there was no thinking about it. He was just gone left, as where he just kind of edged his way and did well to get around. Thought Our Mystery was a little bit unlucky in the second. He looked like he's going to win his race at the third bend, checked up. But yeah, it's going to take a fair bit of winning, like you say, with 3 dogs coming into it. And the draw, I think Tommy mentioned Weekend Dream. He's got a nice draw the next night in 1-2. So it looks like whatever 3 go through in each semi-final is going to be a good final.
Yeah, it looks like it could be a hell of a final. The Puppy Oaks took place at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night, the 2 semi-finals. Of course, competition won by some real stars over recent years, including the likes of Susie Sapphire and her half-sister. Set didn't set the pace, but came home strongly to win the second heat. Looked for all ends up that Boyle Sports Coco would win. She had really shown devastating early speed to go clear down the far side. But in the worst of the wet conditions at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night, she was picked up late by Let's Go Bubbles, who I said is a half sister to Susie Sapphire, for all the same connections, Owen McKenna and Peter Comerford. A lot to like about her, Dylan. One of the many fast ladies, or two of the fast ladies that came out of the Brownstown Tango and Newbury Track Supporters Unraced Bitch Stake down there. What a great competition that was, and it's certainly the form that's standing up in this contest.
Yeah, no, she seems to be really getting the hang of things. When she went out in Newbridge, I think everyone there was a little bit surprised because she ran an absolute blinder behind Boyle Sports Coco the first night. And it just didn't happen for her then the second night. But in fairness to her, she won the stake there last Thursday night and then popped out and won the Saturday night, which takes a fair bit of doing. And it was a massive run Saturday night. She done some running to pick up. I know the Boyle Sports bitch probably isn't the strongest, but she done some running now to pick her up, in fairness to her. She seems to be really coming around. And if she keeps running the way she is, she's probably the one to beat in the final. Really like Johnny Linehan's bitch 2 out and 6. For a young bitch, she just seems so professional about the way she goes about it. She's so wide seat in the final too. So look, you'd expect the Boyle Sports bitch to probably lead in the final, but whether she'll get far enough in front might be the question. But it's a good final. Yeah,
Tommy, Easy Razzle is the bitch of Johnny Linens that Dylan's referring to. She's looked a real prospect in this competition to date. She's unbeaten. She's looked thoroughly professional, thoroughly likeable. She showed tremendous early speed to get loose the other night, and she's certainly not stopping coming home. She does 28.55 on the bunny. And again, Shelbourne wasn't flying. Wet and windy sort of conditions, and Easy Razzle made it look easy.
Yeah, she's an impressive bitch. She has lovely early pace. She goes straight for about, I know she stepped right just out of trap, so she didn't do that previously. She goes straight up until about the winning line, and then starts to look for her angle at the bend. It might get her into a little bit of trouble, but she'll learn from it, because I think she's a proper prospect. Point you made too about Boyle Sports Coco is very important about the track running, because the type of early pace that Boyle Sports Coco showed the other night is the type of stuff that wins you Oaks and the likes on a fast track. You get away and you don't come back. I think it's a much better run than it looks. And yes,
I think she's going to be a serious contender in the Oaks later in the year. Obviously later in the summer.
That's exactly what, on fast track. At the moment, you're looking at, she was in Newbridge and she got picked up in the semi-final. She didn't lead in the final. She got beaten 6 lengths by Easy Razzle in the first round of this. She got picked up when she didn't look likely to get picked up the other night. I think she's going to strengthen up quite a bit, and she's going to have more favourable conditions. So she's going to be a real player. She's got the type of early pace to get you away from trouble, not the type of early pace to get you into trouble, and that's very important. I think she even at the moment, I think Connections will take it on the chin that they're getting beaten in races at the moment, knowing what they have to look forward to.
Yeah, the other qualifiers there, Rural KI or KI. She showed all sorts of pace down the back straight and staying on strongly. She wants further, there's no question about it. She was a wonderful winner of the Rural Kennels on race down at Clonmel. There's better for her in the future, perhaps over a bit further. Lima Rose is very, very likely a race, young and improving, and Gold Cash Ice runs from Trap 5. And again, she's coming forward all the time. A good run in defeat the other night, but she's going to need a flyer. But, she's representing the Meads. They've had plenty of Oak success in the past, or plenty of top-class ladies, and just wouldn't be surprised if she ran beyond herself again on Saturday night in the final. Good card on Saturday night at Shelbourne Park. Some good runs towards the end of the card, especially. Hello Mom, a good winner for Liam O'Connor again. Tommy, a good pal of ours, Liam. He was absolutely bouncing after the last race. She's such a professional. Good run by That's Gizmo. What else won? Rural Bocca won well for Graham Holland. I was very taken by the Divilly's Crafty Orlando. Again, in the wet conditions, he showed tremendous early speed in a race which was packed with early dash, made absolutely light work of his task, his Shelbourne debut, and that's no easy test in itself, Dylan. I thought he was a very pleasing winner.
Yeah, he was impressive, and you can see from his earlier qualifying trials that he's quite useful. I think he's got 16.10 or 16.15 or something like that around Clonmel before he ran. He was good, and like you say, I think them runs later on the card, because pretty much from probably the third race on, it just rained and I'd say you could upgrade a lot of them runs I was actually, I didn't see the race. I was out in the car park for the That's Gizmo race. But when I heard the clock being called 31:30 odd, I thought over the trip on that track, I thought it was a good run as well. So I'd say the later races, you could probably upgrade them, yeah.
Yeah, before we leave Shelbourne Park, there was also an A1 final worth 2,500 to the winner, Mert Lahia, the winner, Delirium Tremens for the Tiny Pharma Syndicate. He didn't lead early, unmatched, looked like she was going to go around in front for Johnny Linehan. After winning in 28:45 in the semi-finals, she stood out as the one to beat if she had got the corner, but she took a bum from Lot Mistocky, and Delirium Tremens showed great bravery to take it up at the third bend, winning in 29 seconds. A dog who could do 29 seconds with his eyes closed. I think that sort of sums up how the track was running on the night. Tommy, the super sprint on Saturday night saw a brilliant performance by Flashing Willow, once again confirming his standing as one of the very best sprinters in the land.
Just want to make one quick point about our greyhounds getting slightly bigger or something. There seems to be an awful lot of around the 80-pound kind of dogs winning left, right, and centre at the moment. It's just, you know, I'm not talking Destiny's Fox now or anything like that, but I'm talking, we're not getting up to nearly three figures.
There was a time we used to sell a lot of the big dogs to the UK, but I think dogs, the bigger dogs are standing up to it a bit better. I think obviously with modern sort of treatment technologies and whatnot. I'm not sure. There are one or two sires that are throwing big dogs. You know, I have noticed that. I'm not going to go into it right here and now because you'd be called up and that sort of thing. But yeah, there's definitely one or two sires that are throwing bigger dogs. What I have noticed as well is, you know, quite a few bitches in and around the 70-pound mark. You know what I mean? Bitches seem to be seem to be getting bigger. There was a time you'd look for a nice 55-pound bitch, a pinger, one that hit the lids, get around that corner and kick gone off the last bend. Like now you need to be doing it everywhere. And some of these bitches, like they look like dogs down the back straight the way they gallop on. And yeah, I mean, it's one to keep an eye on, no question about it, Tommy.
I'm sure the breeders will know a lot more about it than I do, but just something I kind of noticed in winners in the last few weeks is there seems to be a lot of you know, a lot of them are up around the 80-pound mark where you in the past we'd be talking about, oh, it need a bit of time, you need this, you need that, and now they're just coming out and winning pups races and winning every sort of thing. But back, sorry to have gone off point there, but going back to the super sprint, Flashing Willow is just Flashing Willow, isn't he? He's just, if he doesn't have to break in front, he just has to break. He just has to remember when these lids go up, I jump out. A lot of the time he forgets, right?
Just come away level, you know.
Not even level, just come away. Just actually remember to come out of the box to some degree at all without walking out, because he's got phenomenal ability overall. I mean, Super Hitman ran a brilliant race in defeat, but like Flashing Willow came out probably a length and a half, 2 lengths behind, and that's enough. That's enough, because I know when you're back Flashing Willow, you're kind of going, oh, please don't make it 8. Please don't make it 8 today, because he'll still look unlucky. And you know, he'll show all sorts of pace in defeat. Picked up a nice little check at $3,500 as well.
Yeah, he did. He just look at his record: 17 wins, 2 seconds, 8 thirds, 1 fourth. He's never been 5th or 6th, so he's only finished out of the frame once. You know, in all those starts, what are we talking? 28 starts. He's just a remarkably good sprinter, and no doubt we'll see plenty more of him in the coming weeks and months. That's it from the racing point of view. Anything else to touch upon, Dylan?
No, I think that's all. That's all covered. Just looking at the result of the super sprint, those first 3 home all Log Hill Blakes. Usually we're saying Droopy Sydney's, but you must give Log Hill Blake a shout out for that. In the final.
He's been a hell of a sire. You know, perhaps one of the great Derby winning sires of certainly the last 20 or 30 years, no question about it. So often the Derby winners don't really turn into the great sires that they should become. Log Hill Blake is, well, he's not the only exception to the rule, but he's certainly the one Derby winner of the last 20 years that really has made it as a sire, and produces tremendous early speed, as was on show at Cork on Saturday night with Flashing Willow. It's a big week. We look ahead to the Kirby Memorial on Friday. Puppy Oaks is on Saturday. We'll have the Select Stakes on Saturday night. Just lots going on, gentlemen. The Shelbourne Open 600 will start on Saturday night. So, a good week of racing to look forward to, Tommy.
Yeah, that Shelbourne 600 used to be one of my favourites. I love that trip, and I think we have such depth at the moment that it's probably a relief to some of those 600-yard dogs. They can keep away from the 525, 550-yard dogs because the quality is so good at the moment. If you lack any little bit of pace here or there, anywhere in a race nowadays, you're exposed. That's the depth we have. So
it doesn't tend to get the same numbers that it used to in the olden days. Like, we're not going to get 36 runners, I'd imagine.
No,
but we will probably left with 24 for the second round, and it's a great competition. It's still, as you say, a real test of a racing greyhound. You have to be both brilliant and you have to be able to stand up to the war of attrition that is the 600-yard trip over those 3 or 4 weeks. And yeah, there's never a bad winner of this competition. That's the one thing you can be assured of.
Well, you would think that the likes of the winner of a 600 would make a sire. I know it mightn't be fashionable because of the trip, but because of the constitution you have to have, you're running the straight in Shelbourne Park 3 times effectively, and beating top class greyhounds. Like you have to be a star to do it, and we have quite a few of them. We saw it towards the end of last year, the good dogs over that sort of trip. So I'm looking forward to that. Ian.
Yeah, Dylan, anything else to speak of?
No, just looking forward to, obviously the Kirby will be the main one this week. I was planning on going to it, but the old Friday nights don't suit now with Newbridge on, so I'm going to have to watch from Newbridge. And again, like that, the 600. I think everyone looks forward to that. Like you say, it's to do it over the trip. That trip over a number of weeks is, it's not easy. But I think now you see a lot of the classier dogs, stepping up and trip now as well over the last year. Like you spoke about Ballinabula Ed earlier on. You're going to have the likes of, I think Disco Pants won a 600 a couple of weeks or so. So them type of dogs have been mixing it with the 550 dogs. You'll have a couple of them stepping up as well, and then probably some of the 750 dogs. You'll see some of them in it too. So there's a good mix. So yeah, a lot to look forward to this week now.
All for the best will return to 600 yards. Always great to see him in action over that sort of trip. Lots to look forward to, both at Limerick, Shelbourne Park and Waterford over the weekend, as well as top-class racing, I'm sure, in plenty of other tracks. Gentlemen, before we go, we have to mention the passing of a great friend of greyhound racing, Pat Curtin. This is tough. Won the Derby Champion Stakes in 2008 with Shelbourne Aston. I first got to know Pat 2 or 3 years prior to that, when not long back from the UK. I met him through Skippy Gilbert, and it was very soon after that you realised that Pat was going to know everyone in greyhound racing. He was such a character. He really was larger than life in more ways than one. Gentle giant. He was some crack. God, I had some great nights with him. Obviously, I live in Dundrum. He had Winters Parker Browns, which is a matter of 5 minutes walk down the road from me. There was a many a night in the Shelbourne Park on a Saturday night. He'd say, "Come on back for one, we'll have a chat." One would end up being 7 or 8, and you never left with a frown. You always left smiling. He left an indelible mark on the industry. He was a great friend, a great character, a great trainer, and in recent times a great father to his 5 beautiful children, who he loves so dearly. I send my heartfelt condolences to Joe, to his sister Bridget, who did such hard work through the years, to all his friends, especially the likes of Noel Hare and James McGee and people that were always there on his shoulder and travelled the British Isles and Ireland with him. Great character. I told the story today in a piece in Talking Dogs that I was lucky enough to be right beside him when the photo finish was called at Shelbourne Park for the Derby. Given the noise and the chaos involved, he turned to me and said, what did he say? He couldn't hear the judge. And I just looked at him and said, "You've won the Derby, Pat." Now, Pat, I don't know, he was probably 6'7", felt about 7'3", to be honest. He put his arms around me. He welled up straight away, put his arms around me. And as I said today in the piece, felt like being hugged by a grizzly bear. But I'll tell you what, I'd love to have one more drink with that grizzly bear. Tommy, it's a hard time.
Also, it's so difficult, Ian, because I was with you a number of those occasions with Pat, and we were in Winters, and we had some great nights and some great crack. And he was that type of character. He just loved it. He loved the punt. He loved a bit of crack with the greyhound racing. He seemed to meet his people in greyhound racing. His type of people. And oh God, it's so hard for him. Thoughts are just with his friends and his family. Oh my God, just such a difficult time. We'll pray for them.
Yeah, Dylan.
Yeah, look, I didn't know Pat personally now, but obviously when the news broke yesterday, looking at the tributes that were flowing in on social media and that from people like yourself and other people that did know him personally, I think the one thing that went around was gentle giant. He was a big man, but one thing I did know from a greyhound perspective, he was a great man with the dog. Pulled off a right good punt with Shelbourne Aston to win a Derby, and again, look, condolences to all his friends and family. It's a very sad time.
Yeah, one last story. Don't bring me to bring it personal, but Pat was at my wedding. And Tommy, you happened to be on the top table with me, and word came through from the table that Pat Curtin was sitting at. Someone whispered up, said Curtin has said that if he gets a mention in the wedding speech, that he'll buy champagne for the table. I thanked Pat personally for making it all the way from Dundrum down to Laois, that hour down the M50 and whatever road it was, he got there. And needless to say, the champagne was flowing at the table for a few hours after that. That was the character he was. He was just an absolute gem. And again, I send my heartfelt condolences to everyone that knew him and spent time in his company. And if you did, I'm sure the last few hours have been very tough for you. But that's it, folks, for Talking Dogs on a Monday. If you've watched this with us to the very end, close the computer, turn off the screens, go back and give your loved ones a hug. We'll see you. Good night. Good luck. God bless.